The second reading of my series on the way of mastery, and this is a Shanti Christo Foundation book, and published 2005. I don't know whether that was a later edition. It says just copyright 2005, 2020. But this is a powerful book along the lines of the second coming of Christ, which I did many readings of last year. And that book was written by Paramahansa Yogananda, a very famous yogi. And their texts from a different perspective of Jesus. They're not speaking about Jesus being the Son of God and rising up and this, that and the other. They're speaking about the Christ being you, being within you. The Christos is just a term for Kundalini, I suppose. It's the essence of the core of the human being. It's that fluid which, when risen, like the serpent, from the sacrum to through the skull, I suppose, into our seventh chakra here. When that happens, then we have an enlightenment, and then we see things vastly more clear. So I'm going to be reading from just 2 pages. 2 pages is enough, and this book is a 450-page book, but it probably constitutes about a 1,000-page book, because there's the big pages, and so there's lots of text on each page, rather than just having smaller books, you know. So here we go. I'll put my other glasses on, drink a quick sup. The cultivation of the way of the heart is that pathway whereby you deliberately, consciously choose to become again as an innocent child, as you were in the beginning, before you ever created and then incarnated into this dimension of experience that seems to be so permeated by a sense of conflict and separation. So the chapters in here: the way of the heart, the way of transformation, the way of knowing. And I'm always speaking about all of these things, and have been for many years. I don't emphasize the way of the heart in my discourses. I emphasize the way of spirit. I emphasize the way of God consciousness, and so it's terminology that we're dealing with people. And people can say that we need to open our hearts because they consider that that's the epicenter of where love derives from. Well, that's only speculation. I would go outside of the physicality of the human being and say that all things manifest from consciousness, and consciousness manifests from God or is God, and it states something very similar to that in here, which I'll get to shortly. So the cultivation of the way of the heart is that pathway whereby you deliberately, consciously choose to become again as an innocent child. Like Jesus said, truly I say unto you, before you will enter into the kingdom of God, you have to become like a child. And becoming like a child means that basically we unravel the spool of our existence from whom we think we are now to that which was young, innocent and pure before the human operating system, the ego, gathered up too much rubbish along its journey. Children are like sponges, they're open books, they're ready to be written on, and every single waking hour they are learning and they're gathering information. They are open to the world, people. They're not projecting back onto the world. That's just this and that's just that, and that's painful and that's horrible and that's rubbish and all this different sorts of stuff. They are open to everything, and everything is a wonder, and everything is a new experience. And some things manifest as pain and suffering and disappointment and fear and all those sort of things. But those things are a necessary requirement for the human experience. Because if we don't have those things, then we wouldn't make too much consideration for danger. And if we wouldn't or don't make too much consideration for danger, then our lives would be short-lived. So therefore we have to have this fear thing, but we have to manage the fear. We have to put the fear in perspective, and we have to stop our egos building fear up into something larger than life, something which prevents us from living life. And so it's kind of like a bit paradoxical, really, isn't it? We've got this operating system which is highly premised in fear, which hopes to give longevity to the existence of the being, but invariably what it does, it strips away the essence of life. It takes away all those wonderful things, or the opportunities of those wonderful things which are potentially dangerous and are huge experiences for us, and learning curves that if we're going to grow, if we're going to manifest into a fully fledged human being, knowing thyself and knowing a great deal about the world, then we have to have the experience. But with most people, lots of you, you have the fear, the anxiety, the apprehension. It closes your sense of adventure down, if indeed you ever had one, and you won't do many things which are going to bring about incredible experiences. And one of these things that many people won't do is take entheogens, because the ego is telling you, oh, we're not going to go there, what if this and what if that and what if something else. Well, anybody that's ever took any entheogens will always say that they've always had those apprehensions, but when you override those apprehensions, then you go through into another portal of consciousness and you receive great and very valuable information. And there's never been an occasion in 300 excursions that I've had that I would say I wish I never did that. Every one of these excursions, sojourns, albeit some quite horrific, in that you just get a good talking to. Your ego gets a bashing, it gets a proper flogging, and the ego doesn't like that, but spirit loves that. Spirit grows from that, and it's necessary. So we have to override the spirit. We have to know that the spirit, we have to override the ego. We have to know that the ego isn't captain of the ship. It isn't the be-all and the end of our existence. It's a program designed to build and create the fiction of this experience in many ways. But if you allow it to become too seated, too autonomous, then it won't allow you to live and experience. So many of you who haven't lived and are afraid, you have to take mastery. And that's what it's saying here. You have to be master in your own house, people. The ego isn't master. And I'm always referring to this book, The Master and Its Emissary by Ian McGilchrist. We have to know who's in charge here. We have to know who very often doesn't have our best interest at heart. What is our best interest? To grow, to learn, to experience. Many experiences are painful. If we shy away from the pain of life, we won't grow, will we? And so again, any of you that are fear-based, or I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that, oh, just throw it all the fuck to the wind. And at the end of the day, if you decide you're going to climb a mountain and you die on the mountain, at least you died with a very, very powerful and pinnacle experience in your life. Whereas never climbing a mountain, where have you been? What have you done? If you've never climbed a mountain, you've never climbed yourself. You've never mounted yourself. You see, when we climb mountains, people, we climb the physical mountain, but we climb the metaphorical mountain. We climb over and far up beyond the ego, because the ego will tell you every step of the way that it's a stupid thing to do and you risk killing yourself. What if you sprain your ankle? What if you fall? What if you do this? What if you do that? Goodness me, if you listen to the ego like most people do, you'd do nothing. So therefore, do you think that people that ever really stuck their necks out, the adventurers of this world, and people that take risks, do you think they've listened to their ego? They haven't, have they? And so what happens then? Well, they go on to do great things. And so if you want to do great things, you've got to manage the ego. You've got to become master over the emissary. It's just a messenger, people. The ego is just a messenger. It's just going to be telling you messages all day long. But you see, if you don't know, if you don't have the connection with the higher self, the master, then you think you're the ego, and that's all that's going on in your life. Ego, 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 fear, 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 anxiety, anxiety, suppression of life. And it's a tragedy, really. And so we have to master the ego, people. What you decree is. So, it begins there. And I will ask you now to begin to put this into practice. So, wherever you happen to be, whether you are viewing this with your eyes on what you would call your book, or whether you are listening to the words, stop for just a moment and truly become aware of where you are. Having presence of mind. And so, if you are governed and run entirely by your ego, the ego doesn't want to do that. The ego doesn't want you to discover something else. What is that something else that you will discover is the true essence of yourself, the pure, unadulterated consciousness, the spirit. And so when you be silent and try to clear your mind in a meditation, then you enter into that spiritual domain. And that is a whole new world entirely. And this is something that I was broaching, very, very tentatively with the therapist yesterday, and I'm saying that there's not just one thing going on here. It's not just the ego, it's not just the fantasy and fiction of the human experience. There's something vastly over and above that, and that is the spirit, the connection to cosmic consciousness, God, whatever we want to call it. And she's just looking at me. You couldn't see her face, but it's just kind of like she doesn't know a single thing about that. She is just completely immersed in the human experience. And when therapists are so governed and restricted into that professional arena well, they're little help really to human beings. There would be far greater use if they had in actual fact encountered their own spirit, their own deep cosmic consciousness, and then they can look at things like from a Jungian perspective. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst stroke psychiatrist, one of the most, if not the most eminent psychologists on the planet, or who was on the planet. And so we embrace everything because we are spirit having a human experience, and that's the whole thing about what these variety of books are speaking about. So what you decree, what you order, what you sign off, what you want to do, is ultimately going to be what you are. So stop for a minute and think about what you are before you continue with all of the human activities governed and driven by the ego. And where are you? Are you not having the experience of seemingly being within a body? Don't you seem to be abiding in a room somewhere? Aren't you within an environment in which there are certain weather patterns going on around you? Perhaps there are other sounds coming into your ears. So, when you just close your eyes, it's asking just stop for 5 minutes a day. Initially, just 5 minutes. Just to ask who you are. What's going on? What's my environment doing? What can I hear? What can I see? What can I perceive? And so then you look at those things unattached, and you close your eyes and you see if you can make them go away. And if they don't go away, if they're still there, they're not prominent, and then they're not causing any concern, and you're not focusing on them, like traffic driving by or doors slamming, bells ringing, whatever. You're just in your consciousness, and you're just allowing it to be, and you're present, and you're feeling the essence of consciousness, and you're going, wow, this is consciousness. This is really fundamentally what I am. I'm this consciousness, I'm this awareness. That's what I am. And then over and above that, then the ego creates that we're bodies, we're male, we're female, we're professors, we're students, we're carpenters, and all this different sorts of stuff, which is just all just jargon for the human experience. Can you truly be aware of where you are now? Can you feel the weight of the body as you stand upon your feet or sit within a chair? Do you notice the tension in your neck or any other muscles in your body? Do you notice the racing of the mind if that's going on? Can you begin to bring awareness to exactly what is, from a place of innocence and non-judgment, which is pure spirit, pure consciousness? You just look, you just observe. You see, this is the premise of meditation. And even though it isn't saying it here, it's inferring it. And why do I know it's inferring it? Because I'm seeing deeper. Maybe it's going to go on to discuss these things in a later date. I'm sure it is. But it can't speak about all things initially. So it's tentatively just asking you, just to 5 minutes, just try to shut the fuck up and feel. And close your eyes and just be with that. Well, what's going on? And if you've got, oh, this is fucking boring, this is stupid, well, what the fuck, if that's the ego, just say to yourself, ego, shut the fuck up. I'm not interested in you. Shut the fuck up. Okay? Right, thank you. Then, the essence of awareness will start tentatively to make manifest, and when you get in touch with this essence, you'll feel it more and more prominent and powerful, and then the ego will diminish and diminish and diminish and diminish until the ego is just a tiny little operating center which you call on when you want to. You choose when you engage with the ego, and that's when you've got mastery. Takes a long time though for lots of people. You have a saying in your world, it is what it is, and that is the beginning of wisdom. you will of course discover that what is what you have chosen to make of it. Now, there's lots of you, the viewer, who tell me in the comments that you have this issue and you have that issue and your life's a living hell and all these different sorts of things, and you've got anxiety, you've got stress, depression. Well, in my experience, I've had all those things, and I have never considered I was a victim. I always considered that those things had come about for a very good reason, and so I sat with them, I embraced them, I observed them, and in my dark night of the soul, this dullness, this lethargy, this miserable outlook on life went on for 7 years, very, very profoundly. But I never cursed the world, I never cursed life. I never for a moment considered self-harm or medication. I knew that what was happening was for a very good reason. I knew this intuitively, instinctively. And so, well, what did I do? I just allowed it to be. The ego had been obliterated. The ego was destroyed. The ego couldn't match the expectation of that particular facet of my life. It didn't know what to deal with it. It didn't know how to. It imploded. It tried. It struggled. It struggled. It struggled. In the early days, my ego was an incredible force to be reckoned with. You know, it took me all around the world. It engaged me in a whole myriad of things, many very life-threatening things, and all these things, the vast majority of them was I did it on my own, and I was always out. I was on volcanoes and mountains and in tropical rainforests on my own. Nobody else around, and if anything went wrong, well, there was just me to deal with it, you know. But I was never alone. I was never alone. I was always guided. I was always assisted, and I've always known that. And so I suppose that's what gave me the confidence to be able to do these things, because looking back now, I didn't realise that I was with something all the time. I just was pondering why I'm never alone, why I never ever ever have a second of loneliness, or regret about my life, or disgruntlement, or whatever happens, it just happens, and you accept it and you deal with it and you learn from it and you grow from it. So my dark night of the soul, which was for very intensely 7 years, but then it went on for another 6 or 7 years to a lesser degree. Well, I accepted that, and I found myself a cave. I went into my cave, and all I did was to buy second-hand old dusty books from whatever outlet I could get. And I'd often have to cycle an 18-mile round trip to go to a particular bookshop where I could find these esoteric books of 100 or 200 years old. And I was just looking through the dusty, dark shelves of all these old books, and just allowing Spirit to guide me which books I would pick out. And I would pick out all these people that I never even heard of. All these ancient psychologists and philosophers and all that, and I'm like, Spirit wants me to take that one, Spirit wants me to take that one. And sometimes I'd like open up, because these books don't have a blurb on them. A blurb is a new thing. You'd have to open to the preface, and in the old books you had a preface, and so you'd read the preface, and I'd read a third of the page of the preface, and Spirit would go, that's it, just book it, take it to the counter. How much is it? £1? What the fuck? So that's what I did by accepting. I didn't know why I was accepting this. Spirit knew why, and I eventually started, I think after about 3 years of reading 12 hours a day all these books, thinking, what the fuck, this is fucking like watching paint dry. What the fuck Palmer needs Palmer who, fucking what, empedocles, who the fuck's that? You know, I'd heard a little bit about Socrates or Plato, but all the rest of them, they were a complete mystery. And so I just went into it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And like I said to the therapist yesterday, I've been in that realm for 16 years. And I'll never come out of it. And if anybody tries to impose any shackles upon me, any bondage upon me, to go out and involve myself in forced labour, slavery, well, there's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And so that's one of the major reasons I'm engaging in these therapy sessions, because like I said to her, I said, I need you to write something down which affords me protection, because I'm a vulnerable person. As far as what society is trying to recruit me into, press gang me into, well, I'm far too vulnerable to take those burdens upon myself. I can't imagine what would happen to me. So, you have a saying in your world, it is what it is, and that is the beginning of wisdom. You will of course discover that what is what you have chosen to make of it. Now, you see, people in depression, things like that, don't feel sorry for yourselves. Know that Spirit has a journey for you. You are there for a very, very good reason. And the reason is because you need to educate yourselves. And if you don't educate yourselves, if you just wallow in your own self-pity and you take the medication and you drink the beer and you smoke the fags, well, get used to a long, long, long haul in that particular state. Because unless you are proactive into trying to dig your way out of that, learn why you are actually there, then you will be there forever. And so my advice to you is to listen to all these esoteric videos and read the esoteric books on subject matters of the whole, the heart, the soul, which could be coined as the whole, I suppose, the emptiness, the heart and the soul of nothingness. You have to get in touch with that. You have to read books like this. You have to gain self-mastery, people. And if you're not intent on that journey, the hero's journey, the journey of the dark night of the soul, well, you'll have to come back another umpteen times before you do buckle down to business. Because if you have some variety of disease, mental disease, apathy, weakness, and you know, all that sort of stuff, then there's something that you need to work out to step outside of that. And I can speak of this firsthand because I've done that, I've been there. And when many people are speaking to me about all this, all that and all that, I'm like, well, you're at a time of your life where this is a necessary requirement for you to grow. And then when I've known people who have been very anxious or depressed and in bad mental dispositions, I've advised them and I've worked with them and given them books and this, that and the other, and eventually they come out of that, and then they are back in a brighter cognitive disposition again, and they look back on that and they go, well, I didn't like that, but I've learnt a lot. I've learnt a lot about myself, and now I have much more of a handle on what I am and how my ego works, how my brain works, and the lies it tells me, and all different sorts of things like that. So these things are an adventure, people. These mental dispositions are an adventure. They're the hero's journey. And so embrace them, work with them, and do the work. Do the work whilst you are within them. So, so it says, be therefore where you are now, and deliberately decide to access wholly that what you are experiencing in this very moment has no cause whatsoever except your choice to experience it. So on an unconscious level, on a spiritual level, your sojourn to planet Earth has presented you with this, with your particular predicament. And so be present, embrace it, and know that ultimately it is you, not the ego. The ego goes, oh, what's this bullshit, this is fucking shit, oh, the whole world's crap, and all that. But you just got to take mastery over the ego, and then you find the spirit, the consciousness, the God consciousness, the cosmic consciousness within you. And then when you find that, you go, wow, this really is a very, very, very exciting experience, a very incredible sojourn. If we make a few realizations, then this whole experience becomes incredible. And you will thank the cosmos, you will thank your higher self for placing you in that particular realm where you were, because it was the only way that you were ever going to get shook out of your somnambulism, your sleepwalking, because you needed to awaken. For rest assured, whatever the mind may try to say, if you did not wholly want to be right where you are, you wouldn't be there. And if you are in a body in the field of space and time, rest assured you desired it, you chose it, and it's here. It's here and now, people. It's here and now. And so don't be trying to get there. Don't be trying to be somewhere else, you know, past and present and all of these, you know, illusions. The only thing going on, the only thing that's ever been going on is now. And so embrace the now, be here and look at what's going on. Ask yourself, okay, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Speak with the higher self. What do you want me to learn? And just trust me on this one, people. Your higher self, once you open yourself up to it, it will guide you, and then miraculously you will see the things you need to see on your algorithm, because your algorithm is your unconscious, basically. Because what it's doing is when you watch X, Y and Z videos, well, it goes, in my estimation of being a higher intelligence, people who watch X, Y and Z often watch ABC, and so then you'll get ABC in your feed and you'll go, fucking hell, that's weird, I was only thinking about that the other day. Well, yes, because it's like when we are recommended books. People who bought this book often buy these books or like these books and authors, and so we have to know that what's happening these days with AI is becoming our father figure, our teacher, and it's offering stuff to us because it's starting to know who we are, what we are, and what our propensities are. And so then it just gives us more, it offers us more. And the less we look at those things, the less it offers them. It offers us more things that we're more keenly interested in. So the AI algorithms are a very good thing, because what they do is they filter out all the stuff that you haven't been known to be interested in. Otherwise it would be massively overwhelming. So when I go onto my YouTube and it's got all these suggestions down the side, the vast majority of them I would take an interest in. Some of them it's kind of like they throw the odd one in as a new sort of like fractal in another direction, and it's kind of like, okay, let me have a look where that's going. And I'm like, that's interesting, that's very interesting, because there's a sublimation to that. There's an undertow of where I've now gone, which pertain to these other things which I wasn't overtly aware of. And so once again, people, the algorithms can be very useful. But I've said on previous occasions, don't always follow the algorithms, because you'll never get out of that loop, because you will be drawn into a perception of a world which is just like that. Every time you turn on your computer, you'll think, you know, it's all about Trump, and it's all about Musk, and it's all about Ukraine, and it's all about the terrible things in the world. It doesn't have to be, because all you need to do is type in what's going on in the Amazon jungle these days. Let me have a video of someone speaking about Timbuktu, and then all of a sudden you'll be transformed into an entirely different world. So this is what we need to do very often, instead of just having these blinkers on and being drawn deeper and deeper and deeper in. And this is the whole danger of conspiracy theories, because when we get into the conspiracy theories, then our algorithms feed us nothing but conspiracy theories, and then we'll really start to believe that the conspiracy theories are absolutely true, and many of them are, but not all. And because that's all we're listening to, then we will get persuaded, our consciousness will be saturated with this perspective. So we have to get out of the perspective. So when you've been listening to conspiracy theories for a long time, go conspiracy theories debunked, and listen to the polar opposite. If it's flat earth, debunking flat earth. If it's 9/11, debunking 9/11. So on and so forth. And that way you've got the polarities, and then you will come somewhere in between with your assessment of what's going on. So begin here. There is no need to judge it, no need to ask it to be different. Just truly be aware of this. If you're feeling the body sitting in the chair, you can allow the thought to come to mind. I have literally created this experience. Something within me is so grand, so powerful, so vast, so beyond anything that scientists have ever come up with, that I have literally crystallized in the field of experience, awareness of being a body in a space of time. It has come forth from the field of my consciousness, the gift to me of God, who asks only that I learn to create as God creates. So when you realize that you're pure consciousness, and then you look at this human, this ego, with all the programs and all the fantasies and all the projections, you go, fuck me, I'm creating all that. My ego, my body, my spirit, my experience, my soul, all these things pertaining to me have coloured my world. They've created this world. They have produced biases, they've produced likes and dislikes, and they label things as right and wrong, good and bad, and pleasant and unsavoury, and all these different sorts of things. The world is a projection of you, of your experience, of whatever you have experienced throughout your whole life, whether you've read, listened, experienced it, in the so-called physical, all these things, they become you. That's what you are. And then, if you're not careful, that's all you will project back onto the world. If you have a negative experience of snakes, then you're going to go, I hate snakes, snakes are nasty, they're evil, this, that and the other. But, you know, if you go back to that occasion when maybe you was bitten by a snake, well, you was careless, you was foolishness. Snakes are just snakes, they're doing what they do. If you tread on them, they're going to bite you, right? So don't be fucking silly walking in environments where snakes are known to be without the relevant protection on your legs. This sort of thing. So if you do that, then you don't consider snakes are evil anymore, and they are just solely intent to kill you. No, you just got to respect them as creatures in their own right, and know what they do, and where they like to live, and things like that. So it's all about being aware, people. It's gaining the awareness, and keeping a very, very broad mind of all the potential spectrums of life. This is my only creation, and it is very good. So you are you. There's nothing else outside you. There is literally nothing else outside you. It's like solipsism. You can't prove there's anything else outside of you, because if you go, oh, I can prove that I can see something over there, that's in you. If you say, I can prove I'm holding this book, that's in you. It's all your sensory experience. It's all your consciousness. Nothing else. You could never ever prove a world in the abstract, because you don't live in the abstract. You live in here. This is where everything is computed. This is where everything is experienced. It isn't experienced here. Electrical impulses go straight into the brain, and it's experienced in the brain and in consciousness. So the outside world is a fiction of your creation. Just a little bit more. For the Father marvels at what you are, knowing perfectly well that what you are emerged from out of the holy mind. Now, when it speaks of the Father, I interpret the Father as consciousness. So did Jesus. So did Jesus, by the way. If you read the book of Thomas, Thomas wasn't speaking about a man in the sky. When he was speaking about the Father, he was speaking about the origin of consciousness, which is the creator of all things. So, metaphysically, a father figure, something higher, something supposedly wiser, and a guiding figure, you know. So our higher selves is our Father. Do you really want to do that? You shouldn't be doing this. Let's try that, this, that and the other. You see, it's just interpretation, people. Likewise, look upon your creation and marvel. How is it that you could abide in this time frame on this planet? How could it be that you can place yourself behind the wheel of an automobile and actually get it from point A to point B? That is a mystery and a marvel, and no one knows how it's done, and yet it is done. Now you could say, oh, you just get in the car and you drive it, you put the gears there, this. How is all this stuff done, people? Where does the intelligence come from? How is this all this coordination done? How is the perception? How can we drive down the motorway at 70 miles an hour? Being very, very aware of all our environment and knowing when to, you know, brake and move, and, you know, what's this awareness that's giving this facility, the ability to stay alive? Where does that come from? It's cosmic consciousness, people. You just got to go further. You've got to go outside of the ego. Forget about the ego. Just put it in a box, put it in a matchbox and fucking bind it with tape. You don't need the ego. You know, if you're an adult, you already know what the ego's told you for years and years and years about this, that and the other. Well, give the ego a fucking break. Give it a holiday. And start thinking from the higher self and see where that takes you. The reason it's done is that all power has been given unto you, and what you decree is. For a man or a woman shall decree a thing, and it shall be so. You have decreed this moment. Own it. For by owning it right now, you can begin to sense the incredible and awesome power that flows through you each moment. It is the power to create. So, own your moments, people. Own the now. Own everything that you are, whether you consider it to be good or bad. There is no good or bad. It's just a perception. It's a projection of what the ego wants to project onto it. Oh, I'm anxious, so that's bad. Well, what are you anxious about? Delve into it. Learn about your own psychology and listen to people speaking about this. Go and see a therapist, for God's sake, and then have them give you another perspective, and then they'll tell you, well, you know, this anxiety is kind of like, you know, result of cortisol. Cortisol is a chemical which is released by the amygdala, and that's pertaining to how the mind feels about fear and threats. It's called the fight or flight syndrome. And so once you start to comprehend that, and you grasp that at a much deeper level, then you go, well, what should I really be afraid of? The ego's telling me I should be afraid of spiders. Well, what the fuck? Just stay the fuck away from where spiders are. Don't be going into outhouses if there's poisonous spiders and fucking rummaging through all the fucking old shit, because the chances are you're going to come upon a spider. But if you go into the supermarket in your everyday life, you don't need to concern yourself with spiders, do you? So you don't need this fucking arachnophobia at the back of your mind. Spiders, snakes, bears. Fucking hell, whatever you may consider to be a predator. You don't really need to be concerned about all those things all the time. You only need to be concerned about fucking grizzly bears if you live in a realm where grizzly bears live, and you go out into the woods unprotected on your own. Maybe if you go in a group, then you've got, fucking several sets of eyes to keep a lookout, and you've got firearms or fucking bear fucking repellent, whatever you care to take with you. So people, there's just a reading, just fucking hell, this rate, this would take a very long time, wouldn't it? A very long time. And so I'll just continue with it for as long as Spirit moves me to do that. And if I should stop, then you know that you can purchase the book yourself and read through it and evaluate what it says yourself. You don't need me, do you? So there you have it, people. Have a good day.